Welcome to Andrew Talks with your host, Andrew.
Hello, and welcome back to another Andrew Talks. It has been a while since I've done one of these, but I wanted to start off by talking about what is the long-term plan for the podcast. Digital After Dark is still scheduled to be once a month between Matt and myself. With Andrew Talks, I'm working on getting more guests to come on and do more podcasts like this, where it's just going to be myself. There is a new series that is in the works, where I am inviting other managers to come on to talk about how to be a great manager for digital analysts. Now, for this episode, I want to talk about Adobe Analytics Attribution IQ. First, let's go into the history behind it. Attribution IQ was introduced on the 18th of June, 2018. The purpose of this was to give the ability for a non-standardized attribution for the different metrics on Adobe Analytics to be used with other dimensions. Trevor Polson wrote an article on Adobe on the 18th of June talking a little bit more about it. I'm going to read the article, just the first part, to give a little bit more of an idea behind it. At Cannes Lions this week, the big theme will be around the powerful force that creativity is in today's world. For Adobe, we couldn't agree more. However, we also believe that creativity has fundamentally evolved. In a world where consumers' expectations are on the rise, with more and more ways to reach people, the most impactful campaigns are informed by deep audience insights. Brands are under pressure to show that ad and marketing spend are being made in the right places. Deciding the right mix between options, such as digital advertising, email, and content marketing, is a crucial step in allocating resources and informing creative work, but is often done with blinders on. Without the proper data, brands make the wrong investments and risk annoying customers. As consumers embrace more technologies like voice and connected car, this problem will only get worse. To address this problem for brands, Adobe is introducing Attribution IQ in Adobe Analytics Cloud today at Cannes Lions. It's a new solution that taps the power of data to fuel marketing, strategy, and creativity. It removes the reliance on first touch, such as a search ad or initial website visit, and last touch, purchases, or similar conversion events. Attribution to better meet the needs of understanding modern consumer behavior. Attribution IQ is the only solution in market that delivers a comprehensive set of 10 models to capture the different ways in which consumers are influenced, giving fair credit to the impact of channels like social and mobile, while showing how this differs amongst different individuals. Instead of seeing the first and last scene of a movie, brands can now access the full film. And the reason I wanted to read that is I want to really look into Attribution IQ, because this is something which I have been doing for the last 3 weeks. And I want to find out, does this actually work in the way that we believe it should? And for me, that really does depend on your dimension and how it's set up and how it is actually captured on your website. I'm looking at a report that we created with one of our clients where it's just a very simple last touch channel, and we're looking at visits, revenue, and revenue participation on a 30-day visit scale. Now, looking at this, when you think of participation should give equal credit to every value that was previously seen. With that, we have become accustomed to always seeing participation metrics being equal to or higher than the actual metric itself. So, if I see that SEO has a value of X for revenue, I would expect that the participation of revenue should be at X or greater. But that was not what we were seeing with this client. More interestingly, you can see that in the none dimension, there are 0 visits. There are 0 revenue. But it has one of the highest in revenue participation. I raise this with Adobe because this is not something which I have seen. And after several back and forth, Adobe says it is working as intended. And I want to just read their final email back after our last call. With Attribution IQ, the credit for any success event will only be given to the channel that had an instance during the reporting window. If a channel persisted through the reporting window and it didn't have an instance, the credit will be given to none. I am working on getting the documented updated with this information, but it could take some time. We will update you as soon as it is done. Now, this was received on the 14th of October, 2025. I wrote back immediately asking again for any documentation verifying that this is how it works. To date, I have not had a response back from Adobe on this. But it was interesting because on the call, they kept referencing that a data engineering within Adobe who is responsible for the product says that, and this is how it was intended to be working as. But there was no confirmation was this engineer there back when it was first introduced back in 2018? Or has this changed since then? While on the call, I gave several examples where Adobe's own documentation does not state that it works on the last instance, or that it only uses the instances within the window. I even shown a Adobe Analytics Champion article where it doesn't reference this, that it references more in the way that how I believe it should, that when you're using a participation, that it still uses the persistent nature of that variable. So if the variable was set to persist and last for 30 days, then it should be persistent and last for 30 days and still be used in the participation metric. Now with marketing channel, that does work differently because marketing channel will have a rolling 30 days or whatever many days that you set up to be. So for example, if they come in on SEO and then in 15 days they come back directly and you don't have direct to override that SEO, then SEO would persist for another 30 days. I went ahead and talked to Matt about this recently, and I love how he put it, that the Attribution IQ seems to be working off of pre-processed data, not post-processed data. And if that's the case, that makes more sense. I agree with Matt. I understand if that is the way it is meant to be working, because it would make more sense. You would want to see what was the last marketing channel in the last 45 days. But if that is how it is intended to work, then I don't believe it should be none. It should be looking at, in those last 45 days, rerunning the data against the marketing channel processing rules so that none becomes more valuable, so that you know exactly what that none was. That none literally is just stating that they came back via a method which did not overwrite the previous channel because it was not intended to. Now, for some companies, that may be very limited options, but for others, that could be quite extensive. So having that additional knowledge would make their own marketing ability more effective. Now, I also sent this to someone in Adobe to get more information because I understand that from an engineering point of view, it may be working technically based off of the code, but I'm curious about, is it working based off of the intended process? And they sent me something back. And it was from an FAQ, which I will attach to this podcast. And it was, how do props and EVARs compare when using attribution? And it says attribution is recalculated at report runtime. So there is no difference between a prop or EVAR or any other dimension for the sake of attribution modeling. Props can persist using any loopback window or attribution model, and EVAR allocation and expiration settings are ignored. So that goes back to what Matt was saying, that it does look like it's being done on a pre-processed nature. But in that same article, they talk about something else. It's, how does attribution work for marketing channels? And in here it says, when marketing channels were first introduced, they came with only first and last touch dimensions. Explicit first and last touch dimensions are no longer needed with the current version of attribution. Adobe provides generic marketing channel and marketing channel detail dimensions, so you can use them with your desired attribution model. These generic dimensions behave identically to last touch channel dimensions, but are labeled differently to prevent confusion when using marketing channel with a different attribution model. Since marketing channel dimensions depend on a traditional visit definition as defined by their processing rules, their visit definition cannot be changed using virtual report suites. So, are we saying that this is the reason why there are three marketing channels? There's the first touch channel, there's the last touch channel, and a normal marketing channel. Does that mean that the marketing channel will always determine what was the last touch channel and ignore your setup to determine when something is ticked or not? After the recording, I really wanted to look more into what was talked about with the regular marketing channel. And I wanted to see, did that actually make a difference? Unfortunately, I can confirm it does not make a difference. So I did use regular marketing channel, ran the exact same report with the exact same time window in the exact same report suite, and I could confirm, unfortunately, it does not make any significant improvement. The num bucket may have been slightly less, but we're talking maybe 0.01% smaller. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like whenever they are running this on an attribution model that it does go back and reprocesses the data based off of your marketing channel setup. So that num bucket is still going to be a black hole. Then there was another one. Why do I sometimes see dates outside of my reporting window when using attribution models? And it says some visit-based metrics such as entries or bounce rate can attribute data to a period before the reporting window start date range. This situation is due to attribution models using a look-back window, which determines how far back attribution should look to give credit for metrics. The most common scenario is when visits span midnight. For example, a user visits your homepage at 11:55 p.m. on the 7th of September. They visit several pages, the last of which occurred at 12:05 a.m. on the 8th of September. A week later, you run a daily trended report with the date range from the 8th to the 14th. So in that scenario, they're saying that it probably will come in, which means they do have some form of persistence enabled. And that's why I think this is quite an interesting scenario. It does seem that when you are using the non-standard attribution models, that you're no longer going to be using the dimensions in the way that you believe. Even if you have an EVAR set to never expire, that means that it doesn't matter. It's still going to use whatever was any instances that occurred during that look back window. And that's why I'm putting this out, because this is not something which I was very familiar with, especially considering that the documentation is not clear on this matter. There are too many out there which contradict one another. So if you are using a variable which is setting frequently, such as a page name, then this will work very well, especially on a visit participation. But if you're using something which is not set frequently, like a marketing channel, then this isn't going to be as straightforward. And you may want to look at finding another solution to be able to get this type of information from your data. And this is something which I'm going to be looking more into, and I want to put more podcasts out there to discuss this. I believe that the Attribution IQ is a very powerful tool and has been one of the most needed features. I do believe that it is also probably the most confusing to be used. So this goes back to something which I talk about frequently. When you're creating a report, really understand what it means. As you can see, I have spent 3 weeks looking into this, and I still do not believe I have a full grasp over this, but I have a better understanding behind it. And with that better understanding, it is giving me more of a greater picture and a better understanding of what is the data actually telling me. So do take a step back, really look at your report and ask yourself, what is it telling me? What is it trying to portray and inform me of? If you have any questions, do reach out. I am looking at doing a lot more of these, and If there is a feature or a topic that you want to be covered, may it be Adobe Analytics, Google Analytics, or any other tool, let me know. Because even if I do not know the answer right now, I am inspired to go and look and dig deeper and use my connections to try to get more of an understanding. As always, keep on analyzing.